on this. We are involved in setting a vibrant team that will be engaged in inferior communities.
And the truth behind the headlines, whether it's the decisions shaping our nation or the stories unfolding right in your backyard, our team is on the front lines, so you don't miss a beat. Join us every weekday beginning from 7 a.m. to 7:45 for 45 minutes of news point and 7 p.m. to 7:45 for 45 minutes of news point for trusted reporting, exclusive interviews, and shift analysis. Blaze Radio 90.7 FM News, real people, real impact. Because when it matters most, we are already there. Blaze FM News up next.
From Painesville, outside the nation's capital, Monrovia, good morning and welcome to Blaze News Point. 45 minutes of news about Liberia, Africa, and the rest of our one world. Today is Thursday, July 2, 2026. My name is Menso Mendy on top of today's presentation. Stories topping the headlines. President Joseph Boakai calls on young Africans to take a leading role in strengthening democracy and driving technological innovation across the continent. Inspector General of the Liberia National Police Gregory Common reveals that several individuals in the reported US 19 million cocaine case are expected to be charged within the coming days. Lee human rights defender Jesse Cole criticizes Brown County authorities who are what he describes as inadequate public participation in the county's development planning process. And away from Liberia, at least 3 people died during the celebrations in Mexico City following Mexico's victory over Ecuador in the World Cup knockout stages. The news bulletin, the voices of those making the news posts are all packaged on today's presentation. But first is Stephen Talu and the news bulletin. Good morning, Stephen.
Good morning, Mandy. President Joseph Boakai has called on young Africans to take a leading role in strengthening democracy and driving technological innovation across the continent. Delivering the keynote address at the 2026 annual conference of the Young Democratic Union of Africa in Monrovia, President Boakai said Africa is undergoing rapid political, economic, and technological transformation, making youth leadership more critical than ever. The president praised Liberia's democratic progress since the end of the Civil War and commended Liberian youth for their contributions as voters, as civic educators, election observers, political activists, and community leaders. He also encouraged young Africans to become innovators and entrepreneurs, urging them to develop homegrown solutions in sectors including agriculture, education, healthcare, financial technology, and renewable energy. Meanwhile, President Boakai expressed concern over the growing number of young Africans risking dangerous migration routes in search of better opportunities. The president urged participants to develop practical recommendations that promote democracy, innovation, and youth empowerment before officially declaring the conference opened. Inspector General of the Liberian National Police, Gregory Kuma, says several individuals identified as suspects in the reported US 19 million cocaine case are expected to be formally charged within the coming days. Speaking on Wednesday when the leadership of the Joint Security appeared before the Liberian Senate, Kuma said the investigation has reached a critical stage with some persons of interest now elevated to potential suspects as investigators continue to build prosecutable cases. The police inspector described the investigation as highly complex, explaining that authorities are working closely with international law enforcement partners to analyze intelligence, documentary evidence, and forensic materials gathered from multiple jurisdictions. Coleman declined to disclose specific details, warning that releasing sensitive information could compromise the integrity of the ongoing investigation. He assured lawmakers and the public that the investigation is being conducted professionally and independently, adding that investigators will allow the evidence whenever it leads. Kuma also welcomed the Senate oversight rule, stressing that anyone found connected to the alleged criminal enterprise will face justice under the laws of Liberia. The lead human rights defender of the not fully reflect the priorities of local communities. He claimed that some projects included in the county's development plan were influenced by requests from Bon County Senator Prince Moe rather than recommendations from citizens through the county development agenda process. Cole also accused the Bon County Council of failing to fully comply with the Public Participation Requirements on a Local Government Act of 2018. He warned that limited citizen involvement has contributed to a situation where many residents attribute county development projects to individual lawmakers rather than recognizing them as projects funded through county development resources. House Speaker Richie Kun says he has accepted the apology offered by Deputy Speaker Thomas Afala over recent comments the Deputy Speaker made about his leadership. In a statement, Speaker Kun said he accepted the apology in good faith, emphasizing that disagreements are inevitable in a democratic institution but should be resolved with humility, mutual respect, and a commitment to the institution. The Speaker says a priority remains restoring public confidence in the House of Representatives by promoting transparency, accountability, and ensuring that the people's business remains the legislature's top focus. Okun stressed that he holds no personal resentment toward the Deputy Speaker or any other lawmaker and reaffirmed his commitment to working with all members despite differences of opinion. It also urged lawmakers to remain united and focused on addressing the country's challenges, saying Liberia needs collaboration rather than conflict and service over division. A unanimous jury at the 5th Judicial Circuit Court in Grand Kema County has found Bendu Kamara guilty of trafficking in persons, theft of property, and criminal conspiracy following a more than two-month trial involving an alleged cross-border trafficking operation. The court found that Kamara participated in the scheme that allegedly lured Liberians with false promises of employment in Senegal, but instead transported and exploited victims in the Republic of Guinea. Camara was initially indicted during the August term of court in 2025 alongside her children and several other defendants. Prosecutors accused them of recruiting and transporting vulnerable Liberians through fraudulent overseas employment arrangements. During the May term of court in 2026, Camara was granted a separate trial after successfully petitioning the court for severance from the other accused present. According to prosecutors, the alleged scam began when the victim Mustafa Bafali was contacted through Facebook Messenger by Dan Camara, one of the defendants' daughter, who reportedly promised him employment opportunities in Senegal. The court is expected to proceed with sentencing after the guilty verdict, as the conviction marks another major step in Liberia's efforts to combat human trafficking and protect citizens from organized trafficking networks operating on the gates of overseas employment opportunity. Bon County District Number 7 Representative Fode Fambule has defended the proposed establishment of a legislative training institute, describing it as a vital initiative to strengthen the capacity and effectiveness of lawmakers and legislative staff. Speaking Wednesday in an interview in Monrovia, Representative Fala said the institute will provide training in legislative procedures, parliamentary practices, and research to ensure that lawmakers make informed, evidence-based decisions. He emphasized that continued professional development is essential for legislators and staff to effectively carry out their responsibilities and better serve the Liberian people. Fambula noted that similar legislative training institutions operate successfully in countries such as Ghana, Kenya, India, and the United Kingdom, adding that Liberia should adapt the same approach to strengthen its legislature. The Assistant Minister for Basic and Secondary Education at the Ministry of Education, Abba Kenga, is urging all primary and secondary schools across Liberia to obtain valid operating permits, warning that institutions operating without authorization will not be recognized by the ministry. Speaking in an interview on state radio, Kanga said schools without official permits are operating illegally and risk being shut down. He added that unlicensed schools also face administrative challenges, including the ability to open bank accounts in their institutional names or qualify for donor funding and ministry support programs. The assistant minister stressed that obtaining an operating permit is essential to ensure accountability, proper regulation, and improved standards within the education sector. Meanwhile, Kanga has called on all schools to fully comply with the newly approved 2026 and 27 academic calendar, describing it as the official framework for the operation of educational institutions nationwide. He said adherence to the academic calendar and other ministry regulations will help improve the quality of education and strengthen the oversight of schools across Liberia. The director of the insurance at the Central Bank of Liberia, Nathaniel Baba, says the proposed Liberian Insurance Commission will strengthen regulation of the country's insurance sector and improve public access to insurance services. Speaking Wednesday on state radio, Baba said the commission will serve as a single regulatory authority, making it easier for policyholders to know where to seek assistance and resolve insurance-related complaints. He noted that the proposed commission will also increase public awareness about insurance, about helping Liberians better understand the importance of insurance and their rights as policy holders. Baba added that a dedicated regulatory body could improve the efficiency of insurance companies and enhance oversight of the sector, contributing to increase the government revenue and national development. Meanwhile, Baba disclosed that the proposed Liberian Insurance Commission could prioritize capacity building by training insurance professionals and creating more employment opportunities for Liberians. Grand Bassa County Labor Inspector Dante Lewis is urging the government to ensure that the proposed county service center delivers essential public services to citizens when completed. Speaking Tuesday in Bikana as guest speaker at the 11th anniversary celebration of the Grand Bassa County Service Center, Lewis said the focus should not only be on constructing an attractive building, but on ensuring that the facility provides meaningful services that improve the lives of residents. He emphasized that the sources of the new service center should be mentioned about the availability of key government services, including the issuance of national identification cards, marriage certificates, birth certificates, and other important documents. Louis said without these essential services, the construction of the facility will not bring the intended benefits to citizens of Grand Bassa and neighboring counties that continue to face challenges accessing government services. The labor inspector noted that decentralized government services remains important in reducing the burden on citizens who often travel long distances to Monrovia or other locations to access basic state services. It can be recorded that local authorities, government officials, traditional leaders, and residents of Grand Bassa County recently broke ground for the construction of the county service center, a move aimed at bringing government closer to the people. And away from Liberia, at least 3 people have died during celebrations in Mexico City following Mexico's victory over Ecuador in the World Cup knockout stages. Authorities said the victims, including a 19-year-old woman, a 48-year-old woman, and a 44-year-old man, died from suffocation after large crowds gathered across the capital to celebrate the national team's 2-0 win. The Mexico City government reported that more than 1 million fans pulled into the street, with many gathering around the Angel of Independence monument in downtown Mexico City to mark the country's first World Cup knockout stage victory since 1986. Emergency responders treated 3 unconscious people at different locations along Paseo de la Fumana before transporting them to hospitals where they were later pronounced dead. Mexico City Mayor Clara Brugada expressed condolences to the families of the victims and urged supporters to celebrate responsibly with care and respect for others. Blaze News.
Steven Talud with the news bulletin. This is indeed a record of featured on Blaze News Point. If you are just joining us, this is a reminder that you are listening to the Thursday, July 2, 2026 edition of Blaze News Point. Here are the big stories topping the headlines. President Joseph Boakai calls on young Africans to take a leading role in strengthening democracy and driving technological innovation across the continent. Inspector General of the Liberia National Police Gregory Coleman reveals that several individuals in the reported US-19 million cocaine case are expected to be charged within the coming days. Human rights defender Jesse Cole criticizes Brown County authorities over what he describes as inadequate public participation in the county's development planning process. And away from home, at least 3 people died during celebrations in Mexico City following Mexico's victory over Ecuador in the World Cup knockout stages. The voices of those making the news posts are still ahead, but this break, to be right back. Welcome back to Blaze News Point. We don't take our first development. President Joseph Boakai has called on young Africans to take a leading role in strengthening democracy and driving technological innovation across the continent. Delivering the keynote address at the 2026 annual conference of the Young Democracy Union of Africa in Monrovia, President Boakai said Africa is undergoing rapid political, economic, and technological transformation, making youth leadership more critical than ever. The president praised Liberia's democratic process since the end of the Civil War and commended Liberian youth for their contributions as voters, civic educators, election observers, political activists, and community leaders.
This conference comes at a defining moment of our continent. Africa is experiencing people centered development.
Meanwhile, President Boakai expressed concern about the growing number of young Africans risking dangerous immigration routes in search of better opportunities abroad. He stressed African governments must create jobs and opportunities that would encourage young people to build a future at home.
Perhaps one of the most greatest tragedies confronting Africa today is the growing number of them.
That's the voice of President Joseph Boakai expressing concern over the growing number of young Africans risking dangerous immigration routes in search of better opportunities abroad, and at the same time calling on young Africans to take a leading role in strengthening democracy and driving technological innovation across the continent. Inspector General of the Liberia National Police, Colonel Gregory Coleman, says several individuals identified as suspects in the reported U.S. 19 million cocaine case are expected to be formally charged within the coming days. Speaking Wednesday when the leadership of the Joint Security appeared before the Liberian Senate, Coleman said the investigation has reached a critical stage with some persons of interest non-elevated to potential suspects as investigators continue to build prosecutable cases. The police inspector general described the investigation as highly complex, explaining that authorities are working closely with international law enforcement partners to analyze intelligence, documentary evidence, and forensic materials gathered from multiple jurisdictions.
As I mentioned, this is a complex at this point in time that will be charged within the coming days.
And assure lawmakers and the public that the investigation is being conducted professionally and independently, adding that investigators will follow the evidence wherever it leads.
Let me assure the Senate and the Liberian people persons accountable under the law and dismantle every component of the criminal network responsible for this offense.
That's the voice of the Inspector General of the Liberia National Police, Colonel Gregory Coleman, assuring lawmakers and the public The investigation is being conducted professionally and independently, adding that investigators will follow the evidence wherever it leads. At the same time, revealing that several individuals identified as suspects in the reported US 19 million cocaine case are expected to be formally charged within the coming days. The lead human rights defender of the Delta Human Rights Foundation, Jesse Cole, has criticized Bond County authorities over what he describes as inadequate public participation in the county's development planning process. Speaking in an interview, Cole alleged that citizens have not been sufficiently consulted in the preparation of the annual county development resolution, arguing that the situation has resulted in projects that may not fully reflect the priorities of local communities, and claimed that some projects included in the county's development plan were influenced by requests from Bond County Senator Prince Moyi rather than recommendations from citizens through the county development agenda process.
The development superintendent, we suggest or propose. That's it.
That's the voice of lead human rights defender of the Delta Human Rights Foundation, Jesse Cole, criticizing Bond County authorities over what he described as inadequate public participation in the county's development planning process. To get up the news now in the world of sports, let us now read John Stephen Talu for the passion of last sports.
Former Remo Stars and Rivers United forward Abakova believes he has earned another opportunity to represent the Liberia men's national team, saying his consistent performances and commitment to the game justify a record. Speaking on Blaze FM's Global Sports Midweek edition, Kova said he respects every player currently selected for the Lone Star, but remains confident that he deserves to be included in the national team setup. The former Watanga FC striker noted that he has remained active in football and continues to train regularly while awaiting another opportunity to wear the national colors.
It's something that I will tell you that, like I said, every player want to represent his country, but then it's just one step at a time. Most especially when it comes to the selection of the national team, we experience different coaches coming to the national team. Selecting players. I would say most
Styrian Talud with the passing of last post is indeed a record of featured on Blaze News Point. We don't take more development. The Assistant Minister for Basic and Secondary Education at the Ministry of Education, Abba Kanga, is urging all primary and secondary schools across Liberia to obtain valid operating permits, warning that institutions operating without authorization will not be recognized by the ministry. Speaking in an interview on state radio, Kanga said schools without official permits are operating illegally and risk being shut down. He added that unlicensed schools are also face administrative challenges, including the inability to open bank accounts in their institution names or qualify for donor funding and ministry support programs.
For the schools is important because there's a lot of things expect you in return.
That's the voice of the Assistant Minister for Basic and Secondary Education at the Ministry of Education, Abba Kanga, urging all primary and secondary schools across Liberia to obtain valid operating permits, warning that institution operating without authorization would not be recognized by the ministry. The director of the insurance at the Central Bank of Liberia, Nathaniel Gbagba, says the proposed Liberia Insurance Commission will strengthen regulation of the country's insurance sector and improve public access to insurance services. Speaking Wednesday on state radio, Gbagba said the commission will serve as a single regulatory authority, making it easier for policyholders to know where to seek assistance and resolve insurance-related complaints. He noted that the proposed commission will also increase public awareness about insurance by helping Liberians better understand the importance of insurance and their rights as policy holders.
The first thing is that now there will be one regulator. No confusion anymore who to go to and where to go. If you have anything that concerns insurance, you go straight to the Insurance Commission. That's one of the first things we're going to establish. And major there is awareness. Our people need to know what is insurance, why insurance, if you have a problem, where to go. In fact, it even helps the insurance companies. Now they will have speeded recourse. As is now, there's a problem, they will send it to the office office of the executive governor who sends it to the governor who sends it to me, and then my team and I will look at it, and then we go the other way around. When you have a commission that is dedicated to it will be a single focus. All we do is just insurance and manage the insurance. Another thing, and most important thing, is that the insurance laws of our country. The government, even though we are the second largest financial services institution in the country, our contribution in insurance is very minimal. Let me just give an example. Just the marine cargo alone, 15% the losses, 15% of the proceeds from insurance, the tax is about 15%. So we're losing millions of dollars for all the cargoes that are not being insured here. So once that insurance commission passes, the government and people like you benefits right away from millions of additional between $3 to $8 million every year will go to the government of Liberia to do the things that need to be done. In the new act is something called the hit and run fund. There are sometimes some foolish person will hit a respectable young lady or an older person and run away, and the person will be left all by himself or by herself to take herself to hospital. There will be a fund there that the insurers will pay to make sure if such a thing happens, that person will be taken care of. So there are a lot of benefits that comes with this insurance commission.
That's the insurance at the Central Bank of Liberia, Nathaniel Gbagba, revealing that the proposed Liberia's Insurance Commission will strengthen regulation of the country's insurance sector and improve public access to insurance services. Grand Bassa County Labor Inspector Janji Lewis is urging the government to ensure that the proposed county service center delivers essential public services to citizens when completed. Speaking Tuesday in Buchanan as guest speaker, well, listeners, with that, this is how we love to come to the end of the Thursday, July 2, 2026 morning edition of Blaze News Point. Before we go to recap of the major stories. President Joseph Boakai calls on young Africans to take a leading role in strengthening democracy and driving technological innovation across the continent. Inspector General of the Liberia National Police Gregory Coleman reveals that several individuals in the reported US 19 million cocaine case are expected to be charged within the coming days. Lee human rights defender Jesse Cole criticizes Bond County authorities or what he describes as inadequate public participation in the county's development planning process. And away from Liberia, at least 3 people died during celebrations in Mexico City following Mexico victory over Ecuador in the World Cup knockout stages. We say many thanks to our news director, editor, reporter, and correspondent for making this edition of Blaze News Point a success. Stephen Talu brought you the news bulletin in the person of last post. Conan Rufus Sana control and coordinated this presentation. On behalf of the News and Current Affairs Department of Blaze Communications Network Incorporated, my name is Menso Mendy. I presented. Good morning and have a pleasant day from Pinsville.